Let me tell you something about humans. Something no textbook in the entire Galactic Union prepared us for. Something our finest xenobiologists, our most decorated military analysts, and our oldest, wisest elders got completely, spectacularly wrong. Humans do not frighten easily. I am Gora, fourth recorder of the Velhari Empire. I document events. I preserve history. I have written of wars, plagues, and the collapse of three-star systems. None of those entries prepared me for the night I recorded Rex Volta. It began on arrival night. That is what we call it. The first night a captured species spins aboard our command ship, the Throne of Velhar. It is sacred tradition and deliberate intimidation. The ship is massive, cold, architecturally oppressive, designed so that any living being feels like an insect standing inside a mountain. The corridors hum with restrained energy. The walls shift color without warning. Unidentifiable sounds echo from unseen chambers. We have had species surrender entire homeworlds after walking through the entrance corridor alone. Rex Volta walked through that same corridor, whistling, not a nervous whistle, not a defiant one, a cheerful tune, hands in the pockets of his worn jacket, eyes scanning the walls like he was touring a museum he had visited before. Our guards, Pels and Dunvac, decorated veterans of 3 campaigns, exchanged a look I have never seen warriors share. It was the look of beings who realized something important was missing, but could not identify what. Pels cleared his throat. "You are a prisoner," he announced loudly, because sometimes volume is mistaken for authority. Rex stopped whistling, looked at Pels, nodded slowly. "Yet," he said, "I figured. The force field cuffs and the 12-foot blue guys with spears were a solid clue. Good observation, though. Really sharp." Pels blinked. Dunvac blinked. From behind my observation panel, I dropped my stylus. No one speaks to Velhari soldiers that way. There are species who evolved additional limbs purely to run faster from Velhari soldiers. And this human, soft, pink, unarmored, had just responded with sarcasm. The worst part? He smiled when he said it. We placed him in holding chamber 7. Standard procedure. Cold room, dim lighting, 1 bench, no windows. Species usually spend arrival night in quiet existential collapse. It provides the queen leverage for morning negotiations. Rex Volta spent the night doing push-ups. Dunvac checked the monitor 3 times. Each time, the human was on the floor, lowering and raising himself with mechanical precision, counting under his breath. At one point, he stopped, looked directly at the observation lens. "You got water somewhere in this place?" he asked. "I'm getting a little dry." We did not respond. "Protocol." He shrugged and resumed. Here is where the record takes a turn even I did not anticipate. Queen Vera called for him at the 14th hour of his first night. Not morning, not after psychological conditioning. In the middle of the night, Queen Vera, ruler of 9 systems, commander of the throne of Velhar, the being before whom civilizations have knelt, requested the human immediately. I was summoned as well. The queen requires a recorder for all formal interactions. When I entered her chamber, she sat upon her throne, carved from a single slab of black stellar stone, occupying an entire wall. She wore full ceremonial armor. She looked like what nightmares consult when they require guidance. She regarded me briefly. "Bring the human," she said. I allowed myself a question, quietly, respectfully. "My queen, may I ask why now?" The standard preparation interval has not. She cut me off. He is the only prisoner in 40 years who has not triggered a single stress fluctuation on the biological monitors. A pause. Not one. I want to know what he is. I retrieved Rex Volta. He was shadowboxing, striking empty air with casual focus. When I opened the door, he stopped, rolled his shoulders, and grinned. "Field trip." I informed him the queen had requested his presence. He picked up a jacket, slipped it on, and said, "About time." I was starting to think she was avoiding me. I had no response, so I escorted him down the corridor toward the throne chamber while he resumed whistling. In my notes, I wrote a sentence I never expected to record in 4 decades of service. The prisoner is not afraid. The queen is curious. This will either be historic or catastrophic. As it turned out, It was both. The throne room of the Velhari Empire is not a room. Calling it a room is like calling a supernova a small fire. It is a cathedral of power, carved from stone and starlight, designed to remind every living being who enters exactly how small they are. The ceiling rises so high it disappears in a manufactured cloud. The floor is polished to a mirror sheen. Walking across it feels like stepping on frozen water. 12 royal guards line the walls. Armored, silent, each capable of ending a conversation permanently. Rex Volta walked in, looked around, nodded once. "Nice place," he said. "Could use a couch, though." Gora, fourth recorder of the Velhari Empire, made a note. Not because it was historically significant, because I needed something to do with my hands. Queen Vera studied him from her throne. Her golden eyes, capable, it is said, of detecting fear in a heartbeat from across a chamber, tracked his every movement. She said nothing. That silence is a weapon. She has used it against generals, monarchs, and war criminals. The longer it stretches, the heavier it becomes, until most beings collapse beneath it, apologizing, bargaining, begging. Rex looked back at her with the patient calm of a man waiting for a bus he knows will arrive. Finally, Vera spoke. "You are not frightened?" Rex tilted his head. "Should I be? Every species that has stood where you stand now," she said slowly, "has trembled." Rex glanced down at the floor, then back at her. "Looks like regular floor to me. Maybe their shoes were bad." One of the royal guards made a sound. Small, quickly suppressed. I recorded it. In 40 years of service, I have never heard a royal guard produce any noise that was not a battle cry. Vera leaned forward. "I have reviewed your planet's history," she said. "You have fought wars over land, over food, over words written in books, over lines drawn in dirt. You have nearly destroyed yourselves at least 4 times. And yet here you stand, alone, unarmed, surrounded, and you are comfortable." Rex considered that. "Well," he said, "when you put it that way, this is basically a Tuesday." The silence that followed was different. Not weaponized, not strategic. This was the silence of power, encountering something it had not prepared for. Vera stood. She is tall, even for a Velhari. Standing, she fills a chamber the way a storm fills a sky. She descended the throne steps slowly, each footfall deliberate, and stopped directly in front of Rex. Close enough that most beings would cease functioning. Rex looked up at her calmly. "You know," he said, "you're taller in person. The wanted poster didn't do you justice." Vera blinked. "Wanted poster? Velhari Empire. 8 systems conquered, 1 in negotiation. Your face is on every diplomatic warning board from here to the outer belt." He paused. "You've got excellent bone structure. Very dramatic. Whoever carved that throne really captured it." I stopped writing, stylus in hand, notes unfinished. My mind had temporarily resigned. Vera stared at him, and then she laughed. Not controlled, not political, not measured. A sharp, genuine sound that escaped before she could contain it. She turned away briefly, reassembled herself, faced him again, royal composure restored. But the moment had already shifted. "All right," Vera said. Her voice was quieter now, still powerful, but no longer performing power. "What do you want, human? You were intercepted during routine patrol. No military rank. A ship held together, according to my engineers, by optimistic thinking. You possess no leverage, no protection, no reason for confidence." She stepped closer. "Why are you not afraid?" For the first time, Rex was quiet, truly quiet. Then he answered, "Because being afraid doesn't actually help much. We tried that for centuries. Wars, bunkers, weapons aimed at each other across oceans. Fear made us smaller every time." He met her gaze steadily. "But curiosity? That's the one that kept us alive. I'm not afraid of you, Vera. I'm genuinely curious about you." The chamber held still. Then Vera said, "Sit down, Rex Volta." He sat on the throne steps because there was no couch. She sat beside him, and I stood in the corner, 40 years of recorded history in my hands, watching the ruler of 9 systems sit shoulder to shoulder with a human whose ship required optimistic thinking to function. They spoke for 3 hours. About war, about fear, about survival, about why humans rebuild after every fire they start. At the end, Vera turned to me. Gora, how do I classify this encounter? I considered carefully. Unprecedented, my queen. She nodded. Then she looked at Rex. You will not return to your ship tonight. Rex raised an eyebrow. No, no, she said. I rule 9 systems. Yet I have no advisor who would sit on the steps of my throne and tell me my wanted poster has admirable bone structure. A pause. I have questions. Rex leaned back on his hands, staring up at the artificial clouds. Well, he said, I've got nowhere else to be. And that is how a human, no rank, no weapons, no plan, wearing a jacket that had clearly seen better days, became the first voluntary guest of the Velhari Queen. I recorded every word, because someone had to, and because I knew, with absolute certainty, that no one in the Union would believe it unless it was written down. That night, I wasn't sent to conquer an empire. I was sent to understand it. And sometimes, understanding is the most powerful weapon humanity has.